Hey guys, welcome back to what we at Redemption Church call Faith in Action, an online midweek service where we'll be exploring vocational ministry in the 21st century. Whether it be pastoralhood, Christian marriage coach, worship leader, maybe even a theology professor. We want to look into the roles they play in the kingdom of God and see what it entails in this modern church we find ourselves in. Well, come on with me. I'm Isaac Jeter, your host, and we're going to have not just one brand new guest for this episode, but two brand new guests. We have our beloved friend, Pastor dgay, with the Family Church in Gainesville, Florida, and we have our other beloved friend, Pastor Rusty, with New Walk Church in Upper Hills, Florida. They're going to be discussing youth pastoralhood in the 21st century. Man, it's going to be so cool. Please join us for these next few weeks, this brand new episode, and learn how to put your faith in action. So Dusty, you really touched on some good points about your own personal insecurities as a youth pastor, being young, and you're going through the works of the ministry and also ministering to kids with different backgrounds. I want to push a little bit deeper to now that you have these kids in your room and you're preaching them the gospel, you're sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. How did they put that into action appropriately with our series? How did they put their faith into action? Is it outreaches? Is it volunteering? Is it discipling small groups? Is it allowing them to be on the production and worship teams? Tell us all about how you get these kids hands-on.
Yeah, so I think it's a couple different avenues. I think part of it is us kind of redefining, again, success for our ministry as a whole. Like, what is the ultimate outcome we want to see take place for a student that maybe comes into middle school and then they graduate, in high school and go into college? Like, what is it that we want them to accomplish or become as followers of Jesus when they leave the ministry? So we do it in a couple different avenues, man. We invite students into serving opportunities in our greater church body. My wife, I have a really good benefit where my wife is the children's director, so we really try to supplement them into like the volunteering in TFC Kids. I think it's really powerful if we can bring students into a place where we are sharing the gospel message, the hope of Jesus, what it looks like to follow Jesus day to day as a disciple, but then also give them opportunity to then communicate that same message to the next generation in fun and creative ways within kids ministry. So that's like a big one we really enjoy when we have some young girls that serve in TFC Kids on Sunday mornings, and I love that. We've got production team, we've got worship team, we've got a couple leaders that are involved on the worship team on Sundays. We have a couple students that are involved in the production team, so maybe they run slides on the computer in the production room during a Sunday morning service. We have some students who they'll hold signs for TFC Kids out in the lobby, and so they'll meet families or kids and show them where TFC Kids are. We've got some different avenues within like our greater church body that we want to try to involve them in, because again, a big heart of ours is really just trying to eliminate that like youth entity silo kind of mentality. And we want them to serve this greater church body so that when they graduate, that they didn't just graduate and leave a youth group, but they were a part of the local church itself.
Yeah, I think that's something we talked about on the phone, is youth group is kind of like, oh, that's the youth room. That's over there. Yeah. That's its own entity.
Yeah.
But I've seen it even recently with Redemption, that when you integrate the kids deeply, and we do it during our worship services, we allow the kids, we call it the Jesus Corner.
Yeah.
They get to color and draw and whatever on the floor during worship.
Yeah.
So inviting the kids and the youth to be a part of the congregation, that it's not that the adults worship over there and we're only allowed over here, but together. And that's happened through service as well, like you were saying, the kids serving in Big Kids Church, or I'm sorry, the regular.
We grew up calling it big church.
The big church. But more than that, you're talking about becoming familiar with the parents. So tell me a little bit about, you had mentioned how you've gotten to preach a lot to the main congregation this year in your new position. Tell me how that allows you to become familiar to the whole church, to where they can trust you, they see your face and know that, okay, this youth minister, he's worthy of leading my kid to the throne of grace.
Yeah. So we two things that I feel like God spoke to me going into the new year was for our ministry. I mentioned biblical literacy. The other one was partnering with parents. And we've always believed in partnering with parents, but even a next step beyond that is us helping to learn how we can re-engage the home in the discipleship making process.
Okay.
I don't think that happens. Again, we talked about relationships and how important those are. I think a lot of times for youth pastors, we were trained or preconditioned or like told that, you know, hey, lock the door, keep the parents out. As I've matured in my faith, if a parent wants to sit in, sometimes we'll have a student that's here for the first time ever. And their parents like, hey, I want to see what this is about. I want to check out what this environment is. I want to know who they're around. I want to know what you teach. And they said, hey, can I sit in service? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely you can. Cool. Because I don't want to be, we're not afraid of parents. We understand, especially if you're in youth ministry and you have middle school students, you understand there's one way that kid's getting to youth group, and that is in somebody's car, and it's probably the parent.
That's yours.
Somebody's driving them to youth, and if you want them to be in the room, if you want to see growth, if you want your students to be there regularly, I would make sure I start building some relationships, because that parent or that guardian is the one that's responsible for bringing them to your gathering. So we do, I'm honored that I get the opportunity to speak to our larger church body. We get to meet with parents of students. I love when we get to see parents outside of church events though, whether that's at Publix or at a restaurant in town or shopping or whatever like that in the mall. I ran into a student at the mall Saturday and that was so cool because I got to see them. They recognized me, they came and said, hey. I love anytime we get to engage with our families outside of a Sunday service, because ultimately that's what we want to communicate to them is that, hey, I care about you more than just your attendance on Wednesday night or on Sunday morning at church. So the preaching and the communicating is great. I will go out of my way to communicate with a parent. If I see them in the lobby before service, I'll engage with students, and I have some students that'll come up and say what's up, and we'll talk and we'll hang out. But I will make sure if there's a parent with them, I'm shaking their hand, I'm saying what's up, I'm giving them a hug, I'm asking them how their Christmas was. I want to communicate with parents because I think we understand that unless you have the upperclassman high schooler that has a car, not every high schooler is going to have a car, but if they do, they can drive themselves. But if not, somebody's bringing them to your gathering. But beyond that, we want to literally partner with parents in that discipleship making process. We've always joked about this. My wife and I talk about this a lot. And with our teams, we communicate this with our youth teams as well. There's 168 hours in a week. If we're lucky, we get 2. So who really has more influence? The 2 hours and 30 minutes of that is our pre-service gathering where kids are playing gaga ball and playing Uno in the lobby. And then we have worship and I get to communicate for 20 minutes. Who really has the most influence? I think our small group leaders have incredible influence because those students are going to remember a conversation with their small group leader and a discussion they had and prayers over them more than they're going to remember what my second point was last Wednesday night when I communicated from the stage. So I think small groups have influence, but beyond that, parents at home. Not every student comes from a really well put together home structure. Not every student comes from a Christian home, and we understand that. But part of our mission is in making disciples and preaching the message and the hope of Jesus is not just to students, but also to parents. And so we try to engage the parents in we have a Facebook community. I'm sure a lot of youth pastors do this, but we have a closed Facebook group that's just for our parents and our leaders. And so we get to communicate with them about updates or events or things happening. But we also have started a thing that we called Continuing the Conversation. So I will take our small group content that we give to our leaders on a Wednesday night to share and communicate with students, and I'll readapt it into 3 questions that I'll give to parents and say, hey, Thursday on your way to school, Wednesday night when your kid gets home, Thursday at dinner, ask your student these 3 questions to help continue the conversation in the home, and it gives the parents some authority to be able to have those conversations as well. And it gives them a place to, maybe they don't know how to ask the question, maybe they don't know what we talked about on Wednesday. I want to open the door to that a little bit and give them insight into what we're communicating with their student so that then they can continue that conversation in their homes and helping make a disciple of that student.
Well, it sounds, Dusty, like you really invite the parents to be a part of this ministry with you. Not that they're going to lead anything, but you're partnering with them, that you're investing into their children.
Yeah.
And inviting them to invest spiritually in them, whether it's supporting them through driving them to church, or it's just saying, hey, these are the things we talked about. if you talk about these a little bit with your kids at breakfast or
Yeah.
at the end of the night, or pray with them at the end of the night.
Conversation starters. Yeah, we're even trying to take that a step further where we're actually beginning to set up where we'll have like a once a month parent gathering where we invite parents in. And I'm not sure yet if we're gonna do it like on the night of our ministry night, like on a Sunday night during our gathering. And I'll either equip a leader to lead that, or I will have someone that speaks that night and then I'll lead that conversation. But we want to invite parents in and we want to share with them resources about, hey, if your student's been wrestling with something with social media usage, maybe like social media addiction is like a real thing, social media content, internet content, like whatever it is, we want to give resources for them from Christian biblical standpoints on how to maybe have that conversation and navigate that with their student at home, because we do understand they have a lot of influence. I think a lot of times in youth ministry, especially as a young youth pastor, I experienced this again because I felt like I'm the guy, I gotta have the answers. God's placed us in this position of stewardship and shepherding, and I feel like I've gotta save everybody, and it's like we understand that we can save no one apart from Christ, like the blood of Jesus and the Holy Spirit drawing them near to the heart of God. I can't save anybody. But a lot of times I think for parents, they have viewed youth ministry or the youth pastor or whatever as like the hero complex in a sense where it's like they're expected or we are expected to get their kids saved and make them a disciple. But again, when you look at the amount of time that they are immersed in different environments, they spend a lot more time in the home than they do at the church or in youth ministry. And so trying to help parents and challenging and calling parents up to this like this calling to make disciples in their own homes. And then we want to supplement that. I want to help provide resources and prayer and gathering and share what we're communicating in youth. I want to do everything I can to partner with the parents, but that's really what I feel like it looks like is linking with them and saying, hey, let's both seek to bring discipleship about in your students' lives.
Absolutely, and I agree. That's how youth groups should run. Yeah. That the ministry truly begins in the home.
Yeah.
That your parents are the ones who birth you, the ones who nourish you, and of course they maybe not have all the credentials and experience, but Bible reading, prayer, blessing the food, things like that.
And it would be, again, like kind of naive, kind of foolish, kind of blindly going into this thinking that every home is like that, and it's absolutely not. It also goes back to a little bit of understanding our size and our context, because in a larger scale environment, that may not be possible. Within our context, we know most of, if not all of our parents. And so it's gonna be more possible for us to try to build some of those connections, those conversations, and that gathering with parents. I think it can happen on a larger scale. I think it just requires a little bit more planning and preparation and resources or manpower. Yeah, so it's a little bit easier within our size, but I think it can be done at any level.
So Dusty, the last thing I wanted to ask you about is ministry is not a monocentric model. It is not, you're the guy, you have all the answers, you gotta have your hands on every single thing. Ministry, for those who are seasoned and have learned, is definitely a polycentric model, where not everyone gets to call the shots, but everyone has a little bit of say.
Thanks.
So they just have an influence on it, and they can really personalize the ministry themselves, which is the benefit of the local church.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit how you balance your teams, model them off of whether it comes down to general church policy, background checks and stuff, to small groups, and how you're the trunk of the tree, the one with the calling, but then equip others to help others.
Yeah, so that's the unique part about it is obviously like if you're in a ministry leadership role, you are entrusted and you are ultimately like responsible for that department or that area of ministry. But it literally cannot be done without volunteers. We just had a big volunteer Christmas party thanking all our volunteers across the church as a whole, but with our teams and our youth ministry, dude, like they're faithful, they're committed, they're here, their effort, energy, time to minister to students, and like we literally couldn't do it without them. I'm always trying to recruit more leaders. I think you can never have too many leaders. I mean, ratio-wise you can, I guess, but you could always use more space, more leaders that want to pour into students, as long as you have responsibility to give them. If they come in and they have nothing to do, they're going to be bored and they're going to leave. I've had that happen in my life before. So you want to give them responsibility and let them really do ministry. And that's really kind of where I'm at in my ministry leadership growth right now. I'm in the middle of reading a book by Andy Stanley called Next Gen Leader. And he talks so much about delegating and working from like your weaknesses, basically identifying the areas, and it's not like a new concept, but identifying the areas that you are not strong suited in, identifying the areas that don't necessarily bring your personality joy and fulfillment, and learning to be able to hand those off to others, that they do find strength and enjoyment in them. And so we're trying to learn how to do that more within our ministry context, to be able to like spread that, the responsibility out and allowing them to do ministry in real life. And so we have a basic onboarding process for our leaders. If you wanted that, if you were interested in that, you can let me know. You can email me and I'll send it to me and I'll send you the guide. But we onboard them. We do a basic background check. We do a join the team meeting, so they meet with me. I share with them our youth leader guide. They can read through that. They shadow for 3 weeks. They follow another leader around after their background check is cleared. And then we have one more meeting where they get to ask any questions about their experience over 3 weeks. I get to share with them, just kind of running through what the guide expects as a leader. And then we kind of go from there. After that, we have just a conversation about them joining and what their responsibility and role would be. But we want to create a clear onboarding for them to join our team, and we want to clearly define the expectations and the roles and responsibilities. That way they're not shocked or surprised when they do get in.
So Dusty, thank you again so much for your experience, your wisdom, and definitely your time today for Faith in Action. I love this series, and you've been an amazing addition, man.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for the opportunity. If anybody was watching this and they had questions, or if I could share any of my experience, please reach out. I'd be more than happy to. I've had too many generous people in my life pour into me, so I'd like to return that.
I certainly appreciate your generosity. He's a close friend, and he's only getting better every year that passes. Well, join us for our next episode, the second edition of Youth Pastorhood. Dusty's done an incredible job capturing the love and the intimacy of the local church. On the next episode, we will be interviewing Pastor Rusty from New Walk Church.
Incredible interview.
Hills. His friend, they play softball together.
It'll be a good one. Tune in for that.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. Cool collaboration video where we explore the side of ministry with bigger churches, bigger congregations. So don't miss that. We'll see you soon for the next episode of Faith in Action.